What are some truths some parents still refuse to accept? Some parents need to accept that a whole day of shopping with a little kid isn't realistic, and that instead, you just need to do what you can and take them home if they're screaming and crying, especially if they're little. Little kids, especially, have a limit. They won't be able to handle a full day of shopping for a while. Don't push the kid to the point of screeching, screaming, and crying and expect them to continue. It makes them, you, and everybody else miserable. I know, right? Because, like, my favorite part of a full day shopping trip with a toddler is the moment you realize you've become the main attraction for everyone else in the store. Story 2. You, as a parent, are responsible for teaching your kids proper manners and common decency, not their teachers, tutors, babysitters, etc. I briefly worked as a Japanese teacher, and I was surprised at how little some of these parents were involved in their kids' lives and expected me to address all their problems during the short few hours I had them for the week. Story 3. Spoiling your kid too much can leave them really unprepared for the real world. They can end up really useless or a complete schmuck who genuinely thinks the world revolves around them. At some point, you need to teach them they aren't king and queen of the world. They need to fend for themselves eventually. Story 4. That sometimes their kids have valid opinions, and instead of interrupting them and pulling the because I said so and that's just how it is cards, they could listen to their child and make them feel heard instead of suppressed. I tried very hard to do this with our kids. We always gave a reason why something was quote unquote wrong or quote unquote not allowed. Sometimes that explanation was just, this action affects other people in ways you may or may not know. Or often, we want you to be happy and make others happy your whole life, and this doesn't help you do that. Obviously, the statements were changed to be age appropriate, so sometimes it might as well have been because we said so. Now they're teenagers, and I don't know if we made their lives any better, but I know we have a lot of great and mostly civil debates about things, and they definitely talk to me about things most teens probably wouldn't. I guess we'll see in a decade or so how things are going. Story 5. It is incredibly messed up to have a kid in hopes it will make one or both parents straighten up and fly right. Don't give your kid the crappy task of saving you or your partner before they are even born. Raising your kid doesn't make you a superhero, a goddess, or anything else but a parent. I understand parenting is rough and we have no social safety net, but I'm not all that impressed by people who choose parenthood and then constantly want head pats for it. Story 6. ADHD is a real thing. I mentioned to a coworker my ADHD and he was like, nah, that's not real. A doctor tried to tell me my son has it, and I was like, no. I couldn't get into it at the time, but I wish I could have. It is absolutely real and crippling if you don't know how to manage it. Crap, even with meds and therapy, it's crippling sometimes. I'm sorry, little dude. I hope your dad comes around and accepts it one day. Story 7. You cannot really control a person who's older and realizes how much agency they have. Financial dependency is one thing that might stop young adults from disobeying their parents, but, at the end of the day, you can't be forced to do anything you don't want to do. Some parents think they can control every aspect of their kid's life, and pushing for that is exactly what results in kids leaving the second they can. Yep, that's my life story right there, leaving the second I could once I turned 18. But hey, that's enough about me, more about others. Here's the next story. Story 8. Being a parent doesn't make you an expert at everything. During college, I was in a class where everyone else was a middle-aged mom. Whenever I said anything that contradicted them, I was told I didn't know anything because I didn't have kids. Once I told one of them maybe she was annoying for always bringing up her kids as if that was going to change the facts, and she replied, annoying? You don't know anything about annoying. I have 3 kids. Come back to me when you've dealt with 3 toddlers, and then we can talk about annoying. I cannot make this crap up. It wasn't contradicting them about life experiences or anything. It was just straight up about the class. It was psychology. It would be something like, kids don't show the same depression signs that adults show. You have to look for these other symptoms when dealing with kids. And then half of them would start blurting out, well, my kid is like that, but he's not depressed. He has a great life. We do all sorts of activities together, so those can't be symptoms of depression in kids, not my kids. Story 9. Children remember how you react and move forward after they tell you something important. If you don't react appropriately or don't follow through with actionable problems, I'm having problems with my physical and mental health, or I've been hurt, or I don't feel safe, or I need help with school, or I'm trans and need you to change how you speak about me, they will remember how you dropped the ball and it'll mess with your relationship. Story 10. 1. Your kids don't owe you anything. 2. You should be providing the basics and should not be holding that over their heads. For example, I provide you with clothes on your back and a roof over your head. 3. Just because you are older doesn't mean you are always right. 4. Apologizing to your children is more than okay. 5, they are little adults trying to figure out life. Help guide them, let them make mistakes, listen to them, let them ask for help, hear them out during arguments. 6, your kid will drink, smoke, try substances even if you think they won't. They are even more likely if you are strict. 7, strict parents create sneaky kids. 8, your kid will have intimacy whether you like it or not, whether it's in the house or not. 9, age appropriate education throughout their life is necessary. And 10, you don't know your kid as well as you think you do. Story 11. You are not raising kids, you are raising the adult they are going to be. Stop letting them do terrible things and excusing it because, quote, it's cute and, quote, they're just being kids. No, you're teaching them that those things are okay. They have no concept of this is only cute because I'm 5. They just think it's okay. Parents seem to forget that a ton of learning to be a human is imitation, trial and error, and figuring it out by trying. It's like they think if I do not explicitly teach them to do or not do that thing, then they did not learn the thing. Oh, they learned. They're watching you, testing you, pushing limits, learning. You have to treat every situation with at least a dash of, we'll just letting this one go, teach them a lesson that's going to be hell to unteach. Story 12. Each generation is vastly different. Just because your parents raised you a specific way doesn't mean that you have to raise your kids that way, especially when it comes to beliefs. Your kids are going to be their own person, and you need to accept that times are changing. If your kid is LGBTQ+, and that's not your beliefs, that's okay, but at least support them. They didn't choose to be that way. If your kid doesn't believe in a God, but you grew up religious, that's okay. Don't push it on them. It's not your fault. Kids grow up. It's how life works. Just love your children. That's all I ask. Story 13. Sometimes children have disabilities, and this is okay. A disability doesn't mean your child is broken, but it does mean that they might need special help sometimes, and legally, schools cannot give some of those accommodations until the parents agree to it. And if it's things that you need to get outside of school, therapy, medicine, etc., we can't do anything about that. You have to be the ones to get your child the help they need. Some parents refuse to accept that their child is anything but normal, and all this does is hurt their child. I've seen countless kids with untreated ADHD where therapy or medicine would have helped them immensely. I've seen countless kids with varying levels of autism who would have benefited greatly from therapy early on, but by the time their parents are on board with it, after years and years of the school going, your child will benefit from this, any benefits seen aren't as good as they would have been if therapy had started earlier. I've seen countless kids with behavioral issues that could have been solved in kindergarten if the parents had been on board with any behavior plans the school offered. Behavior plans only work if the parents follow up with these same expectations at home, but instead they sabotage their kids' growth by not being involved, and now they have sixth graders who are being expelled for fighting 3 times in 1 week and have the gall to ask, well, what caused this? You did. It's your fault. All of this would have been 100% preventable if you just listened to the professionals at the school and help your child. I feel like I should specify that not all parents are like this, but enough of them are that it just drives me crazy. Story 14. A couple gross old adages come to mind. Raise your daughters, love your sons. Your son is your son till he finds a wife, but your daughter is your daughter for the rest of her life. Parents who raise kids based on sexist premises, whether consciously or subconsciously, need to accept how flawed that is. I truly believe that there's this deeply ingrained precedent that it's somehow okay for parents to accept male children to go out and sleep around. But if a daughter wants to move far away and build her own life and be very independent, it's somehow not so readily accepted. This needs to change. It is massively detrimental to women. Story 15. That children aren't mini-me's but actually humans with their own thoughts, desires, and opinions. If you can't accept and love them unconditionally, you don't deserve them. The number of posts I've seen in the LGBTQ+ subreddit about parents kicking them out or them refusing to accept their children disgusts me. Even in my own friend group, I'm a lesbian, I can count on one hand the number of them who still have a relationship with their family. And it's not just in the LGBTQ+ world. Lately, another one I've been seeing are posts about parents refusing to talk to their children over politics or religion. It's just ridiculous. Don't have kids if you can't love them as individual beings. I'm a mom of 3, and I love my kids no matter what. I'm an out liberal, atheist lesbian. One of my children is a straight, very Christian conservative, and guess what? I don't give a crap. I still love him and acknowledge him and support him. That's what parenting is. I didn't clone myself. I gave birth to 3 distinct humans. If you decide to procreate, then you need to decide to unconditionally love them, no matter who they turn out to be. Story 16. Your kids will not be all each other has one day. Several years ago, my sister and I were fighting, and my mom requested that we patch things up for her birthday present. As of now, we're going on 2 years of not speaking to each other. I don't miss her. I also come from a family where not talking to siblings for an extended period of time is normal, mom included. I definitely have a jaded view of family life, but kids aren't obliged to be best friends with each other, especially when parents don't set that example for them. I'm a very proud aunt to my best friends as kids, and her parents are more my family than my actual extended family. Family is just as much the people you meet along the way, if not more so, and not all siblings are cut out to be each other's friend. Story 17. If you want to be a prude and prohibit your kid from having intimacy in the house, it won't prevent them from having intimacy. It will just encourage them to find other places to do it. Best case scenario, it will be the other person's house. Worst case scenario, it will be any number of risky places with people who are cool with risky behavior. This will increase the likelihood that something bad happens to them, and they will, rightfully, think you suck. I'm not going to say I regret having intimacy in the coat check closet at the restaurant. I'm saying it was less comfortable than my bed. It's also significantly more likely that they'll use protection if they're having intimacy in a planned location where they have access to contraceptives. I think about my friend's mom having protections in their bathroom and how it blew my mind as a teenager, but it was absolutely the best thing she could have done while raising three daughters to know their body was theirs, and their sexuality was their own, as well as that they could be empowered to have safe intimacy, as opposed to relying on a guy to have protection and then navigating the situation if he didn't. At the time, I judged it, but as someone who grew up, had intimacy, and is now a parent in my 30s, it was an incredibly progressive and feminist choice that I admire. Story 18. Children don't have the means you do to get things. That means if your child wants something worth around $20, your kid may need to save up for weeks, or wait months for birthday, Christmas, Halloween to get that toy or candy. The thing is, that toy or candy is very important to them, so when you decide to destroy, steal, eat that thing that your child owns, it's devastating to your kid, and your kid may start crying or yelling at you. Exceptions can be made if you need to pawn your child's toy to pay for a bill. Story 19. Some kids are not born straight, and those kids will have little to no guidance in life unless you are there to step up and be the parent they need. And I am surprised that this has to be said, but kids aren't intimate when they're younger. If a boy likes a girl, they might do cute stuff together and enjoy their company, but that's pretty much the extent of what kids do. If a boy likes a boy or a girl likes a girl, the same stuff happens. It's actually not very different at all. Unfortunately, a lot of kids don't have conversations or even exposure until they're teenagers or even later. This means that a lot of kids are raised in a way where they are completely unprepared to have a relationship. This is why a lot of gay people have a second teenager years in their 20s. They're catching up where their parents have failed them. And no matter what your personal perspective is, gay people will exist. That is life. If you don't like it, then you just have to adjust to it at a very minimum. If you shun a gay kid, then they simply won't trust you and they will be looking towards others who you will probably never meet to raise them. Additionally, talking about homosexuality and exposing them to gay culture will not make your kid gay. That just doesn't happen. If that was the case, then you could simply expose gay kids to a straight lifestyle and they would simply be straight. I should also say that if you believe that people can be born gay, then homophobia and racism are basically the same thing. If you don't want to raise a racist, you might want to consider the implications in raising a homophobe too. And worse, if you raise them to hate gay people and they happen to be gay themselves, then they will likely suffer from severe depression and anxiety. They may never be able to have a healthy relationship. This is much more common than a lot of people think. You don't even need to have the talk, just be inclusive in your language. You're not going to teach anyone to be gay. You're just going to raise your kid the best way possible and be the best parent you can be to them. Why wouldn't anyone want that? Story 20. If your teen is depressed, it's not frickin' hormones, it's something serious, and you need to get them to a psychiatrist ASAP. If not, and they are suffering from a mental disorder or multiple ones, you could ruin their entire life. It's okay for your child to not be okay as long as you just accept it and get them the treatment they need. If you refuse to get them treatment, it's actually child neglect. Story 21. We all won't become conservatives, politically speaking, with regard to that state of politics today as we get older. We may get more conservative with regards to particular things, new shoes, clothes, new electronics, new games and hobbies, new styles, but we won't all become money-hungry, ignorant schmucks refusing to change the world for the betterment of our kids. Story 22. Strict parents create sneaky kids. Don't get me wrong, I understand wanting to protect your kids, but sometimes the helicoptering, especially into teen years, just creates nothing but an insane urge to rebel and find a way to do things they were never allowed to do. I was tracked as a kid, and that did nothing but create more trust issues between me and my parents. Story 23. How their kids behave from infancy through early adulthood is 100% a reflection on them. What they think is best for the kid isn't necessarily best, and if the kid's protesting, they actually might have a good reason for it. Telling them to quote unquote act your age means nothing in most cases. A 6-year-old screaming they don't like their food is natural behavior, as is a 15-year-old being argumentative. Just because a parent has had a comfortable routine for 20 years, it doesn't mean nothing changed. Kids may be more in tune with the changes than they are. Story 24, that their children are their own people and are allowed to have their own thoughts, opinions, plans, and lives. Why can't you just agree with me once in a while? Why can't you just say, yes, mom, instead of turning everything into an argument? Because I don't always agree with you, nor am I required to, because I'm old enough to make my own decisions, because you're not always right, because it's not my job to validate you every second of the day, because there wouldn't be an argument in the first place if you weren't being passive aggressive / purposely inflammatory. Story 25. When picking a name, you are making a human being, not a child. Sure, Khaleesi or Aiden or Jaden or Caden or Braden or Zayden or Nevaeh might sound oh so cute as a toddler, but when the first CEOs and Congress people start coming up being named after a girl on a popular show, or heaven spelled backwards, the whole generation is screwed. While we're at it, stop naming your kids trendy crap. If a name is at the top of a popular baby name list, stay away. Because now your kid is going to be Isabella number 17 in a class of 30. Might as well name your kid plain oatmeal at that point because their name is bland and completely unremarkable. Okay, ladies and gents, anybody else think that OP is being kind of like one to speak here in this kind of situation? Like, what's OP's name? And if OP has children, what did they name their kids? I'm just saying, man, at the end of the day, it's my kid, it's my choice, right? Story 26, that children are intimate beings and need age-appropriate intimate education without shame, without guilt, but with ethics. Parents should look super critically at what their religion teaches about intimacy and or gender roles, because I know I took a while unlearning a lot of toxic teachings growing up female in the Deep South as a Protestant. Avoid parentification. Parents are the authority figures, so have appropriate boundaries. Your child isn't born to take care of a parent. Don't have kids if you can't afford them. Work out your major issues before you have kids, because kids are experts at pushing buttons and boundaries. Listen to your kids. Learn each step of your child's growth, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Don't ask more of them than is developmentally appropriate. Support your kids as teachers too. The absolute worst students are those who can do no wrong, are never taught to take responsibility, never taught to apologize, and are mini royals in their own households. Story 27. Collective punishment doesn't work. It just causes fear, pits your children against each other, and eventually they'll resent you. Autism won't go away just because you put your head in the sand. If your child has learning difficulties, shaming them for not grasping concepts as fast as their peers won't make them learn any faster. And as much as you might love your spouse, if your child is afraid of them and flees to their room as soon as they know the other parent is home, that's an issue. You can't treat your child like dirt and then expect them to still want anything to do with you when they're older. I'm not bitter at all, to be honest. Story 28. That kids are their own individual beings with different views, thoughts, opinions, morals, and feelings. Just because they're your kid and you have custody of them doesn't make any of that invalid. It's not always ignorance. I feel so many adults invalidate not just kids, but younger adults because they're older, so they must know better. The same concept goes for struggles with stress or mental health. Story 29. You as a parent are supposed to set an example. Whatever you do wrong, there is a high chance the kid will do it as well. If you are a racist, so the kid will be. Kids look up to their parents as they have no other role model. On the bright side, if your grown kid sees you as its biggest source of inspiration and you are then its biggest hero, you did a good job. Story 30. 1. The child is their own individual and they will have their own thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that may or may not align with their parents. 2. Children know when they need help and it's a parent's responsibility to give them said help when they ask for it. 3. Teaching a child to respect someone just because they are older than them isn't actually teaching them respect, but rather blind submission, which can lead them to being manipulated easily and they will grow into adults who don't know boundaries. 4. Children do have the right to say no to certain things or situations that make them uncomfortable. And if you're learning a thing or two or nodding your head in agreement or shaking your head in disagreement, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. We just passed 50K subscribers, so thank you very much. On to the next goal. Help me get there. Story 31. Just because you're the parent and they're the kid isn't an excuse or a logical reason for anything. It's blatantly unfair, and you're just silencing your kid not listening to their reason. They're not going to form a good enough bond with you if you show you don't listen to them. I would go to say, I'm the parent, you're the child is a pretty cruel phrase. Also, narcissistic parents tend to love that phrase. Your child doesn't owe you anything. You brought them into this life because of your own reason. Your child isn't there to be your servant, and it's pretty manipulative to say they do. You're not always right. Just love your kids unconditionally. That's probably all they want from you, anyways. Story 32, that I don't have to like my stepmother, especially considering the circumstances under which she became my stepmother. My dad cheated on my mom with her and then married her after divorcing my mom. Because I had to see what that did to my mom and knowing everything that happened, I'd say that not liking my stepmother is understandable. But my dad seems to think that there's something wrong with me for disliking her. I've gotten good enough at hiding it at this point that he doesn't bring it up anymore, and I live on my own at this point anyway, so I generally don't have to worry about it. Story 33. Parents need to get their crap together when it comes to beginner pets for their kids. Fish tanks are too complicated for children, especially kids less than 10, but honestly, even most teenagers probably can't handle it. Really, in my experience, most adults aren't willing to put in the effort it takes to properly maintain a fish tank, so stop coming to my pet store and treating fish like an easy beginner pet. This applies to even just betta fish and especially goldfish. Just because you see Elmo with a fishbowl on TV doesn't mean that crap works in real life. Turtles and hermit crabs are just as bad, maybe even worse, honestly. Hamsters and guinea pigs deserve way more effort than you might think. Lizards and snakes can make great pets, but they generally do not want to play with your kids. Birds are generally a huge commitment. If you want an easy pet for your kids, look at invertebrates. Madagascar hissing cockroaches are quite easy to keep and are also mellow and easy to handle. They're not as gross as you think, and their lifespan is naturally short, just a few years, so it's less of a commitment than vertebrate pets. Arachnids like spiders and scorpions are fascinating and surprisingly personable little animals, but are too frail to be well suited for handling, so treat them with respect. Crayfish are probably the easiest thing to keep in an aquarium, and fortunately, they also have big personalities that make them really enjoyable. This might not really be the response that Opie had in mind, but this crap is what I deal with day to day, and if there's one piece of wisdom I could personally impart upon parents, it would be this. No. Cockroaches? No. Cats? Yes. I'm quite biased because I have 3 of them. Story 34. Please do not have kids if you cannot afford them. I am one of 6 kids, and my mom has always struggled financially. One winter, we didn't have heat, and I could see my own breath when I woke up in my own bed. My mom still has to borrow money from her kids. Your kids will suffer mentally and will be 10 steps behind financially, and they will struggle a large portion of their lives because of it. Do not do that to them. Story 35. That even though our children will always be our children, we become peers and must respect their life choices. My daughter's friend group, currently in their 30s, are going through some really tough issues, family illnesses and financial burdens, etc. And not a lot of them have strong parental relationships enough to bounce ideas off of and just end up getting yelled at, just do what I'm telling you to do, without questioning. Breaks my heart. Story 36. Letting your kids get hurt when playing is good for them. I don't mean letting them break their legs or knock themselves out, but falling over, scraping their knees, getting a little bruise is all good for their development as they start to understand risks. Also, when they fall over, don't immediately run up to them shouting, "Oh, my baby, my poor baby, come here, give me a cuddle," because that just teaches them to start crying for attention when it happens again. Just calmly pick them up, dust them down, and set them off again. Story 37. That they can't be the problem. Too many parents think their child's issues, used as all-encompassing, not saying it in a mean way, just randomly pop up out of nowhere, or that someone else, like people at the park or at school, etc., caused it. So many kids grow up in toxic environments because parents refuse to believe they could be the factor that's hurting their child. Also, when parents ignore the problem altogether, it is as if, quote, nothing could be wrong with you. I didn't raise you poorly. There's no reason for it. Same thing. Story 38. Kind of heading into first world problems territory. If your child asks for an expensive present, which may be well above your budget, and you give your child a cheaper present instead, you may not be teaching your kid the value of $1. You're just reinforcing the idea that the expensive product should have been purchased in the first place. The thing is, sometimes the expensive product really should have been purchased in the first place. Sometimes the cheap products are cheap for a good reason. In the late 80s, you could probably find a beta VCR for much cheaper than a VHS VCR, but local video stores didn't rent beta anymore, so it was basically pointless to buy a beta VCR. Same for HD DVD after Blu-ray took over the market. Cheap earbuds usually have awful audio quality, even from reputable brands. We call kids who desire brand name items as being selfish, but sometimes brand name items are better made than their generic counterparts, and we can all agree that knockoff products are horrible and should be avoided altogether. Story 39. That they shouldn't be parents. Your children are not your world if you are just now getting sober because CPS took them away from you. You were a crappy parent for a long time before then, precisely because your children were anything but the most important thing in the world to you. So just quit with the BS and stop using substances. That your children should be shielded and protected from your personal struggles, not made into your mini therapist for you to vent about your cruel partners you're constantly dragging into their lives. Story 40. Your flaws are passed on to your children. You're responsible for damaging them in various ways. I see adults behaving like pieces of crap and think better parenting would have gone a long way. You're not a special snowflake. You're not better than everyone else. You aren't entitled to special treatment. If your parents discussed how to process information like a rational human being, taught a bit of self-reflection, humility, and empathy, you wouldn't be such a massive D-bag. Story 41. Just because some things are a family tradition, the way holidays are spent, how punishments are dished out, what the parental spousal roles are to be, etc., doesn't mean you have to uphold them if you disagree with them. Did you suffer trauma because your parents would hurt you for making any mistake? You do not have to do the same thing to your children. Did your mother only clean or cook and stay home while your father weren't and never spent time with you? You don't have to imitate one parent and expect your spouse to imitate the other. Did your parents expect you to follow their religious beliefs even though you didn't agree with them? You don't have to try to indoctrinate your own children in response. I guess what I'm saying is cycles can be broken and not repeated if you don't want such a cycle to continue. Story 42. First, the bloodline ends with me. 2, I don't think I asked to be born. You bringing me into the world doesn't give you the right to throw all your preferences onto me. I'm not a clone of you. I'm another human being who has the ability to develop their own personality. 3, how will I grow if you won't let me? Like, seriously, stop being so scared of the world around me. You can't protect me from danger all your or my life. One day I'll be alone and I won't know how to deal with the problem because I never had hands-on experience. 4, school does not fully dictate my success in life. Sure, the knowledge may be useful, but extracurriculars will play a big role when it comes to finding a stable job in college or any other time. 5, when you get old, I'm not your slave and you're not entitled to my money. I earn it, I manage it. 6, no, I probably won't give you any grandchildren. Why? Because I don't want to. Why? Because I'm human, I have my own preferences, and I control my relationships. Learn to live with it. Story 43, that your kid having autism or what you have self-diagnosed as autism and not poor parenting, Kylie, does not mean that you blame bad behavior on it and do nothing about it. Autism is autism. Being a little sod is being a little sod, and both need to be acknowledged, dealt with appropriately, and understood in a meaningful way. To blame my kid's bad behavior on an additional need or illness is lazy parenting and is damaging to children. Story 44. As an Asian, I'm tired of being seen as a byproduct of my heritage while simultaneously being held to an unrealistic image of perfection. I hate it when you're expected to never make a mistake. I hate it when you're expected to figure things out on your own. I hate it when you're expected to achieve success every single time. If you're a parent, please let your children just be themselves. Yes, you're the one who raised them, you've lived more of a life and everything else, but there will be a time when that's no longer the case. Time is ticking, guide them for that day. Story 45. As a junior high school teacher, I see more and more parents going to bat for their kids on minor things such as missing homework assignments and tests. Children will never know the importance of making good decisions as long as their parents are intervening on their behalf, so they don't have to suffer consequences for their poor decisions. I know your child plays video games in class instead of doing classwork. I'm able to see it. No, they aren't educational games. Unless you want your child living in your basement for the rest of your life, let them make decisions and see what happens with those decisions. Let them learn from their mistakes. Story 46. When your kid turns out to be a disappointment to them, it's most probably because they've already painted an image of their child and designed a life that they expect their child to follow. I think parents shouldn't have children if they aren't going to accept them for who or what they'll turn out to be in the future. Of course, certain situations don't apply to this, but I'm referring to their child not being heterosexual or cisgender, having different religious beliefs, etc. Story 47. Funny that almost all of these responses are obviously by 18 to young 20-somethings. If you are still living with your parents at age 22, you still are under their rules. You are not independent yet just because you are an adult. You are a financial, emotional, and physical drain on your parents after age 18. quote unquote truths about parents at this age are incredibly self centered and selfish. Your parents just got a break after 18 plus years of micromanaging your survival. Get your own place and you can be independent then. As an actual parent, the truth some parents will not accept is that it is okay to make mistakes as a parent. You have not ruined your children, you are but one large component of a child's upbringing. You are responsible for the person your child becomes, but try to see the forest through the trees. I had a parent who lamented making all of these mistakes while I was a child as though they contributed to me being a complete and utter failure as an adult, which was very much not the case. It made it harder for her to appreciate my achievements. Story 48, quote unquote, I'm an adult now, please trust that you raised me well and let me live my own life. Most of the comments here are so heartbreaking. My hope is that those posting are also reading others as comments and taking some comfort in knowing they're not alone. For those of you who may be struggling with how to deal with parents or other families who are so very difficult, please know that separating yourself from problems can be a viable option, especially if you have support from your spouse or siblings. I severed my relationship with my mother when I was 29, have never once regretted doing so, and 40 plus years later, it is one of the best decisions I ever made, second only to my choice of husband. Do what is best for you. Don't sacrifice yourself in service of narcissistic and manipulative people. Story 49. Sometimes one has to understand when the child has a problem that needs professional help. My parents often knew when someone like that was needed, which also improved their health as well. When I developed an autoimmune disorder, they helped me get the clinic to take it seriously and arrange a trip to see specialists. They wanted to help me rule out any concerns that were thought to be on my mind. When it was confirmed that it was an autoimmune disorder, I started treatment right away. I had to inform my workplace, who was understanding, as they had also gotten worried. They didn't worry about the money, they cared more for their workers, which in turn is a better investment. Story 50. My aunt has borderline personality disorder and is just awful to everyone. But last year, she went too far and tried to end my grandmother. The police were called, but she and her boyfriend fled the state and moved out east. My mom, stepdad, and brother just cut her out of our lives after that, but my grandparents, including the one she tried to end, still regularly contact her. She's still incredibly nasty to them and mostly badmouths my mom, but they still love her. Parental love must be some powerful stuff because I couldn't talk to somebody who tried to end me. She's moving back sometime soon, so my whole family is going to stay on guard. Story 51. If you are aware that you're a crappy parent and can admit/learn from your mistakes, you're doing a good job. Your experiences with how you raise your kid cannot be applied to other kids. Being strict on your kid and limiting what they can and can't do beyond obviously bad life decisions makes you a crappy parent. Being lax with your kids and letting them do whatever they want despite the harm it causes to them or others makes you a crappier parent than a strict parent. Letting them bully others, letting them go around bothering people in public spaces, insisting their actions are just how they express themselves, etc. If you think your kid is absolutely perfect, you're lying to yourself and deserve how they treat you when you're older. If you think your kid is worthless and treat them as such, you're lying to them and deserve how they treat you when you're older. Your kid isn't a servant. Your kid isn't exempt from doing chores and picking up for themselves. Your kid is a kid. Responsibility is something you have to teach them, not something they understand from birth. Story 52. That just because you want to raise your son to grow up to be a man, you don't have to sacrifice affection in order to quote-unquote harden them. I never realized that me and my dad never talked about feelings or stuff like that until I met a friend of mine's dad, and they had no trouble saying I love you to each other, or would openly discuss feelings and such. That really made me kind of want that relationship with my own father, but I think we're past that point. It's not like we have a bad relationship and I know that he loves me, but it would be nice to be more open with each other like my friend and his dad. At this point, I'm so weirded out by affection that it's hard for me to tell him what I'm feeling or if I need help mentally. And it's affected some relationships I have with other people too, especially if they are very vocal about their feelings or emotions. Society has told men for a very long time to stifle emotion and bury it deep or else you appear weak, but I do feel a little emotionally crippled as a result. I do know that if I ever have a son, I'm going to make an effort to teach him that it's okay and perfectly healthy for him to feel like he can be open with me so that I can help him with whatever he goes through. Story 53. That at some point you have to become the parent of adults, and that really needs to start happening before they become actual adults. If you want your teenager to trust you, then you have to show they can. That is parenting an adult. You don't have to suddenly let them do whatever they want, same as you don't have to let any adult staying in your house do as they please, but you have to treat them like people who can make their own decisions and want to trust you to help them. When I found out my daughter, who was just getting to graduating high school, was lying to us about staying with a friend and was really staying with the guy she was seeing, I just said, paraphrasing as I don't remember exactly, "You are old enough to make decisions about yourself, and I have to learn how to let you. I want you to know that you can always call me if you have a problem you can't get out of and need help. And to do that, I need you to trust me and tell me the truth when you are staying with the guy you are seeing instead of pretending I don't know and lying about it." She looked down, smiled, and said, "Okay." Then, every time after that, she trusted us with the truth, and we left it at that. And when the time came she did need help and was somewhere she really shouldn't have been, yes, she was an adult for real by then, but dad can still think you shouldn't be there. She called us, and we helped. Story 54. That kids mess up sometimes, and it's okay. There is no reason to berate them or make them feel worse when they probably already do. Sit them down and talk with them. Maybe they are scared to come to you because they don't want to disappoint you or they are upset with themselves. Let them know that it is okay to make mistakes and that your love for them will never waver no matter what they do. You can even turn it into a positive teaching moment and build up your child's self esteem, self worth, and confidence that it is okay to mess up and that nobody is perfect. Story 55. The story of your life isn't your kids' life. Some of the strangest conversations I've had with my parents and my friends who are parents is trying to get them to understand that the lessons, mistakes, tragedies, struggles, values, challenges, etc. of their lives are the same ones their kids have. While oftentimes their kids can empathize when their parents relay a story, generally speaking, kids are really just thinking, that has nothing to do with what I am experiencing and talking about. They weren't listening. Listening to my parents talk about how it was growing up in the 1950s and 60s and trying to relate it to my growing up in the 1970s and 80s to make a point about how my kids grew up in the 2010s was just so frustrating. Yeah, step out of the time machine, please, folks. Your kids are trying to talk to you about now, today. Story 56. Some of your kids' problems can't be fixed or cured by you. Your kid is going to go through some stuff that you, as their parent, have no control over. As a parent, you will feel helpless. You can't make them heal. You can't save them. You can't process those emotions for them. They have to do it on their own. Heartbreak or grief, for example. I'm not a parent, but if I ever become one, this will be the thing that hits me the hardest, I think. The best you can do is just be there for them, whatever form that takes. A little warmth and shared silence can go a long way when they feel alone in the darkness. Story 57. One can notice a difference on how you treat your new children and how you treated your last family. And I think the worst thing is that his family ignores everything that happened before and wants me to treat his new kid as if he was my brother and his new wife as if she had a meaning to me. I mean, I literally got to know her when my grandpa was suffering and in an uncomfortable way. People expect kids to respect, love, and care about people they unexpectedly introduce to your life. Just to be clear, I have nothing against them, it's just that they don't mean anything to me. His new family has been with him for years now. I just see them like 2, 3 times a month, and I barely go with him lately. So it's hard to establish a connection. People don't forget, especially kids. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.